The Aztecs are the latest pantheon to join Age of Mythology Retold, and just like every pantheon, they have a unique army, gods, god powers, and myth units. We'll cover everything, starting off with their economy. The Aztec villager is called a settler and is the standard economic unit for the pantheon. They can collect food, wood, and gold, as well as construct buildings. In Age of Mythology, the Greeks are considered the baseline for gather rates, as they pretty much gather one of everything per second, and the Aztec settler works at 90% the speed. Any other civ with low base rates have a boost in eco somewhere else, like the Egyptians have the pharaoh to boost their eco, and the Chinese have the Quafu to gather ridiculous amounts of wood and gold. The Aztecs rely on their cow pulley. The cow pulley is a shared drop site for food, wood, and gold, and can give a boost to each resource with a set attachment. Each of these attachments can only be placed on one cow pulley maximum, with an option to move it to a different cow pulley later on, and they give a 15% bonus to the target resource, with extra add-ons to go with it. Imagine a pharaoh empowering just for food, wood, or gold, depending on which one you choose. The food drop-off is called the livestock pen, and as well as increasing food by 15%, it periodically spawns livestock as food is deposited. The wood option is called a lumber outpost, and you can garrison 5 units inside this building, and it also adds a projectile attack like a tower, so it's been very good against any open wood lines that might get raided. The gold option is called the craft workshop, increases gold by 15% of course, and then 10% of other resources that are dropped off to this cow pulley will also be given as gold. And anyone familiar with Aztec mythology might have a clue in for their favor system. It is human sacrifice, specifically villager sacrifice. Each settler donated to the temple will bring a big burst of favor, with less favor given for each villager that's already been sacrificed. If we're comparing this to the Greeks again, then the first villager that's been sacrificed would take a Greek villager 2.5 minutes to actually pray that away. So it might seem pretty strong, but you do lose a villager, and then each villager that is sacrificed after that one will give you less and less. But if you don't fancy destroying your economy, you can also gain favor from units falling in battle through tonali. Tonali from those fallen units can be collected by warrior priests or nearby towers. It is slow work compared to sacrificing a villager to the temple, but it's still a decent favor income if you get a few of these heroes out. Before covering any of the major and minor gods, we'll see what's shared amongst all the Aztec gods. Starting in the Archaic Age, the unique scout for the Aztecs is the Kimichin Spy. And this guy shows off one of the new mechanics, the stealth mechanic. Standing or running near a tree will make your scout invisible to all enemies, and get yourself ready for a surprise attack. The spy doesn't have the best attack himself though, so it's probably best to save the ambush for some other units later on. He does have the ability to gain extra line of sight when standing still, which pairs nicely with the stealth to see what your opponent is up to. Almost like a mini oracle, but nowhere near as much vision. Then later on in the Archaic Age, you can drop a temple, and this will allow you to build the warrior priest. As mentioned earlier, he is the tonali collector in battle, but he's also able to pick up relics. The warrior priest has decent stats when compared with other pantheons' buildable heroes, and can potentially become stronger later. For a small favor cost, he can become a super version of the warrior priest, but he only lasts for a limited amount of time. And after that time is up, he actually dies off. It isn't like he just goes back to his normal version, so you got to watch out when you're using that one. Back to the normal version though, he can also build towers, temples, and the Aztec castle building in the Heroic Age, the Great Temple. Moving up to the Classical Age, we've got 2 more military buildings that we can construct. The first one being the War Hut, home of the Tlamani Spearman. Stats-wise, he competes with the Spearman from the other pantheons, closest probably to the Yari Spearman from the Japanese. He's relatively fast with a large multiplier versus cavalry to stop those pesky horse raids. Paired with some text later on, I can imagine the Spearman being a solid raider considering the Aztecs don't have any early cavalry options themselves. The second unit is an archer in the War Hut, and that is going to be the Tequiwa Archer. He has a small multiplier versus infantry, so could be considered an all-round archer for the early game, although he's technically coming out of the building, which is for counter units. Shoots slightly faster than a Toxote, but with less damage, but he does have 0.5 speed more than the Toxote, so he's pretty quick for an archer lacking a horse. This building does also bring another special mechanic for the Aztecs, which is traps. Units from the War Hut can build hidden traps for wood and gold. One trap is a smoke bomb, which causes some confusion when it's set off. Having only played against the AI, I'm not sure how good the smoke trap really is, so we will have to see that one. But the spike trap, which is the second trap, feels pretty good. It does a small amount of damage and a quick stun on the enemies when they walk into it. You can also task these manually if you don't want them to automatically go off for some real min-maxing. Building number 2 for the Classical Age is the Noble Hut. And this Noble Hut houses expensive elite units. First up is the Coyote Warrior, a fast Huskal or Shinobi type unit, which is strong against archers. I think it's probably better to compare him to the Huskal at 2 population rather than the Shinobi at 4, but a faster and less survivable version of the Norse counterpart. And second is the Ocelotl Warrior. This is another guy with the jump and invis tech, which I absolutely love. Guys that can jump with the Anubites and everything like that. I'm loving that there's so many that can just jump out of the forest. He seems very strong. I guess you would compare him to a Myrmidon. I also added a Samurai for this test, but I feel like that's not fair because the Samurais are just even more population. And of course, each Civ does have their own ships in the dock, with an archer ship, a hammer ship, and a siege ship. If you like water, then here they are. Moving up in age again to the Heroic Age, keeping with the dock, upon reaching the 3rd age, you will get a free Axolotl to fight for you, which he looks absolutely great. He does have a little shield that pops out when he's attacking things, but he can't go on the land, so that is just something to note. But along with this next stage, there's also an extra unit available in the Noble Hut, which is the Eagle Warrior. Those familiar with Age of Empires 2 might be a bit confused here, because in AOM, he's actually a ranged unit, and quite a lot of range, 19 range. He's another fast unit with a small multiplier versus archers, and feels like a pretty unique unit. I don't think there's anything from any other Civ that feels like an Eagle Warrior. Most anti-archers have low pierce damage and a big multiplier, so the opposite to this guy basically. I would say he's kind of like a cross between a Yumi archer or a chariot archer with the Wuzu Javelineer from the Chinese. A building we briefly mentioned earlier is the Great Temple. This is the castle type building for the Aztecs. And the first dude that comes out of here is the Otontin Smasher. He kind of feels like an Atlantean destroyer, but better against buildings. When I was testing this though, I thought it would be a good idea for the building to be the Troy walls from the campaign, because I thought it might look cool. But it turns out that was really dumb, as they have more armor than a normal building, so it made the Smasher look just overpowered as hell. Turns out that compared to other siege-type infantry, he is the front runner, but not as good as any of the direct siege units like a siege tower or the dudes with the ram. Second unit from the Great Temple is the Shorn one. This is probably a better matchup for the Samurai. He feels a bit closer to it. An elite high population unit with a slight bonus versus infantry. These guys seem pretty strong, but these guys are expensive and they do come out of the castle, which for other civs can be quite difficult. The Great Temple does bring with it more sacrifice opportunities. The first one is garrisoning 3 livestock at the Great Temple will mean that devoting settlers earns more favor for a short period of time and livestock fatten faster. So if you want to go for some kind of fast heroic into dropping 3 livestock off, then loads of villagers into the temple, it could be a pretty decent way to go. Maybe that's the best bang for your buck in terms of getting rid of your villagers. Now, moving on to the Mythic Age, there are 2 more sacrifices for the Great Temple that we need to talk about. The first is garrisoning 15 human soldiers in the Great Temple. We'll devote them, kill them off, and you will spawn 6 myth units, 3 from Age 4 and 3 from Age 3. Now, this could be a huge power spike when you hit the Mythic Age. If you're getting rid of 15 human soldiers that are really low HP, or maybe some of the ones from earlier, those kind of spearmen that are quite cheap, I reckon that could really turn the tide. Obviously, you are getting rid of 15 human soldiers, but it seems like it could be pretty strong. And the last sacrifice is going to be Arrival of the Gods. If you garrison 6 warrior priests inside the Great Temple, then you can also sacrifice them, and you will get an incarnate of your major god, which is pretty wild. So each one of the main 3 major gods, you get a slightly different version. They have slightly different effects. And sacrificing 6 warrior priests seems pretty good, but he is on a bit of a timer. I believe it's quite a long timer, but still, he won't stick around till the rest of the game, but he will be able to sacrifice 6 more warrior priests and do it all again. In the Mythic Age, moving back over to your docks again, you can also get a mutant axolotl, and one will spawn for free. This guy is pretty much just a bloated version of the axolotl from earlier. He just looks a bit scarier and does a bit more damage and has more shield. But he can also not just go in the water, he can also walk on the land. And if you feel that your axolotl from earlier is missing out, you can actually evolve him into a mutant for a favor cost and walk him onto the land as well. So axolotl lovers are absolutely fine. Just 2 more units to cover in this stage. The Great Temple is going to house Jaguar Rider. So there is 1 cavalry unit for this civilization, and it is the Jaguar Warrior. And I think this is the most Age of Mythology way to bring the Aztecs to have a cavalry unit. Some people might not like this because Aztecs didn't have cavalry, they didn't have horses, but I think this is really cool. Normally, Mythic Age cavalry doesn't go down too well because by that point, you're going to be having towers that have crenellations and deal bonus damage to your cavalry. But having the ability to go invis and also jump from the trees, just like some of the other ones, and just seems to trade pretty well compared to some of its other counterparts, like maybe Camel Riders or Hippias. And the final unit before we move on is this big siege dude, Hinametsin. This guy throws a ridiculously big rock at whatever building he wants to take down. And this guy, he does some damage. He does massive damage to buildings, but that big rock, if it hits a unit, a normal unit, it basically does nothing. It does 3 DPS, which is essentially the same as a Peltast, which is one of the counter archers for the Greeks. So nothing against normal units, but those buildings, he's going to take those down pretty quick. Now for the major gods, we have Huitzilopochtli here, and I've got to do my best to pronounce these gods. So let me know if I haven't done them right. But Huitzilopochtli here has a focus on conquest and expansion. His temples, great temples, village centers, and town centers refund 33% of their cost upon completion. Now this screams to me that he's going to be a bit of a boomer, building a town center, getting your resources back, maybe going up to a 3rd town center, or even with his abilities that we'll get to in a minute. I believe he should be a good rush civ to then go back to building a town center after he's done some good damage. Collecting Tonali earns resources in addition to favor, equal to 5% of the defeated unit's cost. So he also wants to fight, so it's a little bit of a mix. And Shorn ones from the Great Temple have 10% bonus hit points and generate 100% more Tonali in combat. His god power is called Blood Pact. Target any unit to grant it immense power for a short duration. This is why I think he might be quite good at rushing. You can send one of your early myth units over, or even maybe your warrior priest in, and use this Blood Pact, and you can do some big damage with it. Your unit does die off afterwards, but you do get some favor for it. It seems like it's around 10 favor. Maybe it's different depending on which unit you cast it on. But it does mean that you have enough to maybe get a tech or get some kind of myth unit afterwards without sacrificing a villager. His unique technology is Wings of the South, which your spearmen and archers will gain extra speed and train time. And the train time goes down by quite a lot. And this is what I was saying earlier about the spearmen and archer raids, or at least the spearmen raids, with their extra 10%. If you are going through Huitzilopochtli and running with the spearmen, it could be pretty brutal. Second god is Tezcatlipoca, and this is the guy I wanted to play as first. He is focused on myth units. Every 2 myth units that are lost spawns an obsidian shard. If the shard survives long enough, it summons a free myth unit of the current age. So think of it like a phoenix from the Egyptians that drops an egg down, and if the egg survives, then a new phoenix is born. It's like similar to that, but it can be done with any myth unit, and it's pretty similar that it doesn't take too much to actually destroy these shards. But if you've got so many myth units in a fight and loads of other units as well, I can imagine a few myth units kind of getting through and doing some big damage. Towers and traps are built 25% faster and inflict 25% extra damage. And Devoting Settlers grants you extra favor per age. So it's 10% and then works up 10% per age. So if you're going again for that heroic age kind of lots of sacrifice, you could do really well with Tezcatlipoca. His god power is Obsidian Mirror. Target any player to secretly copy their Archaic Age god power. So in a 1v1, obviously you're not going to secretly copy anyone's god power, but in team games you could get some really big ones if you want to go for a Tsukiyomi or a Frey and get the Golem Bursty or the New Moon. Could be insane. And his unique technology is for the jumpers, which is also why I like him. Gives extra jump range and damage to all the jumpers. Final major god is Quetzalcoatl. He is the snake in this one, and he's going to be having a focus on warrior priests and noble hut warriors. Warrior priests generate extra favor per second, performing bloodletting at the temples. So if you really don't fancy sacrificing villagers, you can have your warrior priests stand near the temple and give them blood, and it will generate favor quite slowly, but it is something. It does bring your warrior priests down to 40 HP, around 40 HP, depending on what age you're in, maybe slightly more. So you are going to have some low HP dudes, but maybe that favor could be useful. His Calpullis and their additions cost 33% less, which can just work out some early games really nicely for him. He can get a lot of those attachments on his Calpullis very early on, and you could go for a big eco kind of boom, almost like having a pharaoh on every single Calpulli, which is nice. The Noble Hut units are plus 15% in HP, and the Eagle Warriors have plus 2 range. So we said they had a lot of range earlier, now they're going to have even more if you're a Quetzalcoatl fan. His god power is called Tailwind, and gives a friendly group of units a big boost of movement speed for a short duration. I found that, at least playing against the AI, you can get some big rushes off this way, where not using it to get from your base, but actually when you're in the enemy base and you can run around and dodge enemy arrows and do all sorts with it, and it seems pretty good. You can use it in loads of ways. I mean, you could run away, you could engage a fight, someone wants to run away from you. I think it's a pretty good Archaic Age god power. And his unique tech is Feast of Sustenance, where herdables can now be devoted at the temple for a 15% increase in all gather rates for 15 seconds. Now, I have tried this with extra favor and that doesn't work, but it does work for everything, and also stacks. So if you were to give 3 lots of these turkeys over, then you are going to get a small boost with each one. I don't know if there's diminishing returns or not. I'm not that good at maths. Now, minor god time, and starting in the classical age, Patacatl is your first classical age minor god. His god power is Agar Bloom. It's a tree which either heals all your units and depletes its food that way, or you can actually gather the food at a boosted rate than you would hunt or farms. It's 800 food currently in this current balance patch, and I think it seems pretty good. I like the mechanic. And his myth unit is an interesting one. It is a group of rabbits which grows by numbers the more it fights, and can actually heal themselves by eating farms or berry bushes. The only thing is, they munch through those berry bushes pretty quick, so if you're using them on your own berry bushes, it's not ideal. You kind of want to find some in the middle of the map, or maybe somehow steal your enemy ones, but you can get more and more rabbits, and they deal more and more damage. The upgrade for the rabbits also gives them more HP, and allows them to eat faster. Ospatli Infusions is one of his techs as well, which is 10% extra HP for your human soldiers and villagers, as well as a small regen to both of them. Magui Cultivations allows extra farm gather rate for your villagers, as well as giving food back upon actually constructing a farm. It does seem like a pretty good farming civ, so nice early farm bonus there. Second god has been dubbed Melina by Soup, so I'm probably going to go with that, but we will try and say a name. Melina Sochli has the god power Infestation. Target a location and summon an infested nest that will spawn scorpions. So 3 scorpions spawn initially. These guys have a 0.1 multiplier versus villagers, so you can rush with this as it is a classical age god power, but they don't do much damage to villagers at all. And you start with 3, and then 1 will spawn every now and again until the infestation runs out. But it does seem pretty strong for rushing. If you need to use it defensively also, just getting 3 extra units can really help you out. Her myth unit is a twin-headed snake, which has 2 special abilities. One will do some burn, one will do some poison, and a decent myth unit is the snake. The upgrade to the snake only really applies to it when it dies, and when it dies, it deals some divine damage as well as some tick damage, which is divine also. So similar to a scarab dying, it's going to happen with the snake. So maybe only worth it if you're really planning on getting a few snakes. Sticking with the poison theme, she has an upgrade for your boar hut soldiers to give them the sting of the scorpion, so they have a small divine damage over time as well to the spearmen and the archers. And this tech, the trance with the flower, seems pretty strong. It reduces the units that it's attacking's attack speed for 5 seconds, and it does stack. So if you've got quite a few units attacking one strong unit, you can slow their attack quite considerably. Last classical age will be Weiwei Coyotl, but maybe we'll go for Mr. Hee. It's going to be Lullaby is his god power. A target circle will be put to sleep, and if you wake them up, then they will then come and damage you before the timer is up. Gives you a small circle for not long, but this can be very strong using it on a back line and then just going after the front line, waiting for those to go down, and then you basically have a free attack on whatever the archers are as well. Then his myth unit I did show off in my first game of the new Civ, which is this little turret guy. He shoots a pretty small beam of damage at his opponent, and he can also be in turret form, which gives him the ability to not move, but he can deal more damage while there, so a good defensive option. His upgrade is a weird one. He spawns a trap when he dies, and it's 50-50 which trap you actually get. He gains extra vulnerability to hack attacks in the turret form and the normal form, so basically just more survivable. His first non-myth unit tech is for the Coyote Warrior, giving more pierce armor to that unit, which is exactly what he wants. Next one is the drums, giving more speed, so 10% villager, human soldier speed, and hero speed. Faster units is always good. And then finally for your traps, he makes your traps cheaper and be able to build more. Heroic age now is Coatlicue. Her god power is the earth monster, which you can summon the earth monster from the ground and it will repeatedly deal more damage to units. It just comes up, swallows some units, and then brings them down. The first bit of damage does decently to buildings, but then each one after that doesn't seem to affect buildings at all. Her myth unit is a turtle rabbit mythical creature, which embodies the balance between the opposites. He is good against buildings, he rolls up and deals some big damage and can knock down lots of bowling pins as well. There is no myth unit upgrade for this guy, so she gets an extra tech for just other things. The Serpent Skirt summons anacondas from your destroyed buildings, so if you lose buildings, you're going to gain 2 anacondas for a small building, 3 anacondas for a large building. It might not seem very good, but if you played against Poseidon, you know how strong this is. Normally I don't like things, you getting bonuses for things dying, but every building spawning some more units, it means you can't just have siege pushes that come along and annoy you, so I'm definitely behind this one. The Shrines tech removes cost of repairing buildings and allows them to regen. So repairing is free, similar to Frey, and they also regen similar to Gaia, so it seems like a good tech. It's 25 favor, which for the Aztecs is quite a lot. String of Hearts allows human soldiers to deal crush damage to buildings, which is pretty wild. Don't think there's a tech like that. Basically bringing them in line with Zeus's bonus, which is cool. And finally, a boat upgrade, which is going to be the siege canoes. For every 1 HP missing, deals more damage and has more armor. Koyol Shoki is the next one, and her god power is Starfall. Target a location to bombard enemies with falling stars. Star demons occasionally emerge from the craters to fight for you. This seems quite good. It seems like a Tempest that doesn't slow units, or like a mini lightning storm almost. Her myth unit I used in my first playthrough of the Civ, and her myth unit seems pretty good. They are fast units that deal some pretty decent damage, and the upgrade for them, they attack quicker and do more damage, which is always nice in an upgrade. One of her techs is quite expensive on the favor, but then it reduces the food, wood, and gold costs of all techs from the temples and great temples by 75%. So if you've got a plan, this could be a decent one to get a lot of techs in. And an insane tech on this one is 250 wood for devoting settlers gives 15% extra favor. The final upgrade for her is going to be for your axolotls. They will be able to use their shields and special abilities more often, and it's cheaper to upgrade them to mutants. Eats Papatol is the next and final of the heroic age. Purge is the god power. You target an enemy military unit. This unit is suspended in the air, and then all nearby units of the same type are destroyed. So it depends on what you're really using it on. If your opponent's gone for a massive archer ball, I could imagine that being insane, where you use it on the middle one, they can't run away in time, they all die. That could be pretty sick. Opponent's gone for loads of different types of units, then maybe it's not going to get as much value. Obsidian Butterfly is her myth unit. This unit can hover over water, which is always nice for these guys with wings. And she has a bit of CC and some decent damage. The upgrade for the butterfly gives extra speed and more damage on her special attack. One tech is Obsidian Napping, which is your Coyote, Ocelotl, and Eagle warriors. So everything from the Noble Hut does 15% extra damage. Another favor boost here, this technology, adding an extra amount of favor granted from Tonali, which could be pretty nice depending on what the numbers on it are, so we'll see how busted it is. And another boat tech will be Arrow Canoes deal 30% more damage. Finally, Mythic Age will be Meatland Takutli, and you may have seen this one from some early content creators, but Volcano is an insane god power. If you're thinking about Earthquake and all those other destructive god powers, Volcano is probably that one that's going to get nerfed. It is very, very strong. We like to see it. The myth unit is this owl fella who can mark enemies for death. And when you kill that guy off, you'll get increased tonality, and it does reduce the hit points of the unit when the enemy is marked as well. And the owl does look like a bit of a hero. There's no myth unit upgrade for this owl. Unfortunately, that's him. Meatland Takutli does get extra technologies to his name if you don't have a myth unit one. 2 techs are for the Teashitla. So this is the extra strong warrior priest hero that you could convert for a small amount of favor. So the first technology grants him 25% extra HP and damage, as well as 8 line of sight. And I think in the Mythic Age, this should be a pretty strong technology, being able to use this guy essentially on cooldown, as you can just keep bringing villagers to devote, spend 50 food to then get an extra bit of favor. So you can constantly have these very strong warrior priests. And then the second upgrade as well means on death, which they will die after a small amount of time. It's just what happens. It is inevitable. They inflict 40 hack damage and throw enemies in a radius of 5. Next upgrade is ranged soldiers return 15 wood on death, as well as getting 15% extra damage. Now, maybe in the Mythic Age, 15 wood isn't going to make that much of a difference, but if you're going for some pure archer kind of comp, then I mean you can just keep rebuilding them. So, and the extra 15% damage is always welcome. Here we have the Sean one. Will be getting extra damage with this tech and extra bonus damage versus heroes. Second Mythic Age god is Tlaylock, and he has a big pillar, a totem that comes down and deals big damage when it comes in, and then deals some water strikes until it's destroyed. Now, the initial damage is pretty strong. It takes out some buildings similar to a Tartarian gate, but with a smaller impact zone. But then the extra water strikes feel a bit underwhelming. I think this could use a buff, but it looks very cool. His myth unit here is a stealthy amphibious guardian that can strike from distance with its long tail. Also has some CC and even a graspy hand with that tail. You can bring some units in and stun them. There's no upgrade for this myth unit either, but again, means you do get an extra tech. The first being Burnt Water, which allows melee attack for your towers and fortresses, and also giving them 25% extra HP. Now this Calpulli tech is really interesting. You get minus 90% on the food, wood, and gold cost of all the techs, 300% research rate, and you get 100 gold in your inventory for each Calpulli tech you research. So if you essentially get to the Mythic Age with no techs, you get a huge eco boost from just the gold alone. And it only takes 15 seconds to research this, so I think there could be some kind of strategy where you're going to go for a fast Slaylock, maybe whack down a pillar, get some damage done, while you're then using this cool tech with the Calpullis. Another Calpulli tech here, which is just villagers work faster from the farms, the huntables, and the herdables. And finally, for Slaylock is 4 jars. The Great Temple costs less wood, gold, and increases your pop cap by 1. Now, I really like this tech. I was very critical of Demeter with her tech, where she just gets a ridiculous amount of population. I think population shouldn't be something where more, one civ gets way more than the other. Oh, Isis gets more, but the other Egyptians can anyway. But increasing population by 1 for each Great Temple, so you can go up to, I believe it's 10 Great Temples, might be 15 now. Our final god to cover is Xolotl, and he's the last Mythic Age god. His god power is Corrupted Ground. Target an enemy to corrupt the earth. Defeated enemies here will be reborn as vile abominations that fight for you. I love this whole vibe of this guy with the whole death. When I've used this, I feel like I don't know what's going on, but it seems like there's a lot going on. And a decent Mythic Age god power. Soul Guide is your myth unit that deals some pretty big damage, and you can also upgrade those to a Soul Master, which he can then use a Chain Lightning attack, similar to a Son of Osiris, and they seem very good. Upgrade kind of affects your Soul Guides, but you granted a free Soul Guide for each of your existing Great Temples, and you also get a new Soul Guide whenever you finish a future Great Temple. And there's not that many texts like this, and I absolutely love it, and the Soul Guides are a great myth unit. Twisted Limbs is more jump damage for your Ocelotl warriors and more HP, so if you're going for a Mythic Age kind of play with those guys, then definitely worth it. And the final tech is for your Kimanitsin, which is the throw rock guy. You can upgrade those to a stone skin version, which I believe was the first thing they ever teased about the Aztecs. And they just deal more damage, have more HP, and more range and line of sight. So that is everything for the Aztecs. Let me know what you're looking forward to playing, or if you want me to cover anything else, let me know, and we'll see you in the next one.